Hello there and welcome back. How worried are you? I said worried, but it came out about hackers or the government rifling through your private emails and your stuff. Edward Snowden cared enough to use a service called LavaBit to protect his message, and now, after a bit of a hiatus, it is back online. The company shut down in 2013 when its founder, Ladar Levinson, refused to hand over encryption keys to the FBI, which would have crushed privacy protection in the face of government snooping. LavaBit relaunched last week. But do we need it? Let us ask Camille Foster, partner at Freethink Media. And Freethink just released a profile on Ladar Levinson as part of the 6-part documentary series on technology, freedom, and hacktivism. Camille, welcome back.
Howdy. Thank you for having me, Kennedy.
So let's talk about this. Very interesting. Edward Snowden says that he's back on LavaBit to show support for the company that essentially shut down when the government wanted access to his file, which would have given them access to all of their customers.
That's right. Yeah. At the time, this is 2013. Edward Snowden is someplace in Hong Kong on his way to Russia, perhaps. And the federal government says to Ladar Levinson, the founder of LavaBit, hey, we want access to your SSL key. The key that they would have gotten from him because of the architecture of the system wouldn't have only given them access to Edward Snowden's account. It would have given them access to all 400,000 plus of his users' accounts, ostensibly. So Ladar, facing this circumstance and having a national security letter served to him, something he could not talk about publicly, made the really tough decision to shut down his entire company to try to actually deliver a degree of security and privacy
and
to his customers,
for the people,
which they thought they were getting. They had an encrypted email service. They thought they were going to have that sort of protection, but they wouldn't have had that had Ladar not taken some steps to try to assure them.
And because of that, he became a hero in the privacy community. I mean, it obviously got out what he did, even though he couldn't talk about it, but people realized that...
It actually was a little weird because it was a government filing that they made a mistake on that left on Edward Snowden's email address that made it obvious that this was about Edward Snowden. But at the time, Ladar could not talk about it. In fact, could not talk about it until the gag order was lifted last year in June or July.
And you have been working on this documentary on him for quite some time. It just came out, so people can go and watch it and learn a little bit more about this. What I want to know is, what is the significance of him relaunching LavaBit the day that Donald Trump is sworn in as the 45th president?
That is an interesting question. I mean, I think the truth of the matter is any president can get this wrong, so to speak. There is definitely some sort of balance that has to be struck when it comes to the government's ability to go out and get information when there's a serious, significant crime that's taking place or might take place, and people's ability to keep their information private and secure, both from governments, both ours and other tyrannical governments, and from hackers on the internet. The fact of the matter is we want to make certain that presidents like Donald Trump are held accountable, but same was true for Barack Obama. When a lot of these scandals broke out, the very first time it was Barack Obama who was in office.
Did Ladar feel like Obama let down?
I don't know. I haven't talked to him about that. I certainly think that his perspective on this was that the federal government should not be in a position where they can send a letter to you, essentially demand all of this, access to all of this information, and put you in a position where you simply can't even stand up for yourself. You cannot talk about publicly what's going on here. That's a very tough situation to be in.
Yeah, and we have friends who essentially went through the same thing at Reason as well. You know, we've seen journalists who have been subjected to these kind of gag orders where they're not allowed to talk about the process that they're going through. They're not allowed to express their free speech because the government essentially squashes it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And look, you know, I think there have been some reforms. The USA Freedom Act gave us some reforms, but they really have not gone far enough. So it is still the case that people get these national security letters, that they face gag orders, and that for a number of people who don't necessarily have resources, I mean, when Ladar was holding out on the federal government, part of the reason he had to capitulate was because he was facing something like $5,000 a day in fines for not complying with the order that he'd received. This is just, it is an incredibly difficult situation for someone to be in that doesn't have a great deal of legal expertise on their own and isn't particularly wealthy.
Well, maybe he'll become wealthy with the relaunch of LavaBit. Camille Foster, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Keep doing great work and making fantastic films, documentaries, and specials that we can all partake in.
Thank you very much.
You are delicious. Bless your bones.